welcome.
Hello, everyone. You're doing great today. I've been introduced as Thorsten with Galaxy Digital. That is correct. That's my professional node operator hat. My solo hat is with eStaker. I've been solo staking since testnet, since before mainnet genesis on the Beacon chain. So today we're going to talk about run your home node like a pro. I will say, when I did this, I was assuming you already have a home node. That might not be the case. So we can adjust as we go. There's one of those slides that more talks to how do I even stand one up in the first place. Also, I have this scheduled for maybe 15 minutes of talking and then Q&A. So, if you have questions, get them ready and we'll hopefully get to address them all. And if we don't have any, then you have extra time after. All right, let's start with the pros cook with water. All the tools that pro operators use are usually free and open source. They're the same tools that a home operator would use. So specifically, you're looking at monitoring and alerting. You're looking at patching, like that's your job, so that you don't have vulnerabilities and things work and the bugs are fixed. You're looking at automation, and what else do I have there? Better network. Yes, not a problem for the pros, but definitely a problem for the home stakers. Little bonus slide, Linux is easier. We see now and then people come into eStaker Discord, they're like, I want to run on Windows, I want to run on macOS. You can, but it's hard. All the tools are written for Linux, all the guides are written for Linux. Don't be afraid of the thing. Do yourself a favor and do an Ubuntu or a Debian. It'll be far easier to run than a Windows or Mac OS for this particular use case in the longer run. Okay, monitoring and alerting. This truly is what distinguishes a pro from a home node. A lot of home nodes are great with this, some are not at all. So what I found, as I ran nodes professionally, the initial setup and getting everything set up nice, that's one piece of work and you get that done and you know what you're doing and that's it. After that, the really hard part is how do I know when things go wrong? That's your monitoring and alerting. The good news is there are a couple tools you can use as a home operator that aren't too difficult to use. The first one I'm going to shill here is Beacon Chain. That's Butter's. If you know eStaker Discord, you know Butter. That's Butter's firm. So they do the on-chain alerting, meaning it can tell you if you're offline, if you're proposing a block, if you missed a block. So we've had some node operators, for example, who are offline for weeks and they don't know, right? This would tell them. There's a little app you can install on your phone, iPhone or Android. It'll let you know if your validators are down. Extremely helpful. It can do disk space and memory alerting as well. You run a little stats collector alongside your node, and it will then again in the app let you know, oh, you're at 90% disk full. Do something about it, right? So you're not running out of space and your validators are down. And yes, it can alert on new client versions. So if you're wondering, do I need to patch? Is there a hotfix coming? Is there maybe a hard fork coming? The app can let you know when that is happening. So you don't need to constantly be in Discord or on Reddit or whatever and monitor this. You can rely on the app to tell you that your client has a new release. I'm also suggesting here that you configure Linux to send you emails when things go wrong. There are only a handful of things where this might happen. For example, Linux will send you an email if you're using RAID. If your RAID fails, it will send you an email when the file system fails, things of that nature. They're extremely rare, but it's good to have that email capability in there. It's not hard to set up. A little fancier would be a Grafana. So you have a Prometheus Grafana running, you get logs into there. Logs actually is low-key, never mind me. You get your metrics into there, you have some dashboards, you set up some alerts, and Grafana has a built-in alerting system that can pretty much alert into anything you want. Could be your Slack, could be an email, could be Discord, could be Telegram, anything you want really. You just have to set it up inside Grafana. It is baked into already some automation tools. ETHDocker has it baked in. Rocketpool has it baked in. It can also be added if you do a systemd setup like with Soma ESAT or CoinCashew guide. It can be added after the fact to that. Remy has a guide on how to get Grafana in there. Should also say all the things I mentioned here. I have links at the very end of the presentation, so you don't have to Google your little heart out. It's all there, right? One note about ETHDocker, which is my own project. The dashboards are there, the metrics are there, even some pre-configured alerts are there. Here's what's not there: a path to send the alerts to you. So if you're using ETHDocker today and you're like, what's this alerting you speak of? I encourage you to go into Grafana, look at the alerting sections on the left and configure a way to send the alerts to you. They've probably been piling up in there and not going anywhere. I can't configure that for you because obviously I don't have your email secrets, and nor do I want them. Okay, patching. Such an easy thing, and so many people don't do it. Patch like it's your job. That's all I have to say. Do it on the host OS and do it for the clients. You're better off when vulnerabilities are fixed and when bugs are fixed. So one example, we had a fairly nasty SSH bug this year. People who have unattended upgrades running on their Ubuntu or Debian, this was just a nothing burger for them, right? By the time it got published that this is a problem, it was already patched out by the OS teams. But if you're not auto-patching, it can get tricky. Now, there are people who are afraid, who are like, will this break me? I've been patching my entire fleet of servers, 50 plus, I think actually 100 plus, but whatever, for 3 years now with automated reboots, and it's not caused an issue. So that's anecdotal, but still, it's typically good. For clients, you can do that with automation or manually. Typically, you would seek a new client version. I'm not suggesting that you update to every client version automatically. Even with automation frameworks like ETHDocker or ETHWizard, I would wait to see the new version is out, read the release notes maybe, see do I want this version and when, and then hit the upgrade button. Automation. This is great at scale and is also great for home users. Yes, you can do everything in Soma ESAT or CoinCashew, and a lot of people are happy with that. You're going to do a lot of manual work, right? So we have automation frameworks to help with that. A lot of them started with these guides. So you're looking at ETHDocker. ETHDocker was created by taking literally the Soma ESAT guide and then pouring it into Docker for automation. ETHWizard by Remy, ETHPillar by CoinCashew, and then Styrium from the Styrium team are all great. Pick any one. If you want to stay in a manual setup, that's perfectly fine. You're just doing more work, right? I obviously only use one of these because I maintain it. That's the ETHDocker one. But they're all fairly similar in the amount of effort. So for ETHDocker, it's 3 commands to get up: eth_the install, eth_the config, eth_the up, and then you need to grab the keys and do an eth_the keys import, and that's it. An update is eth_the update, eth_the up, right? 2 commands. That's very similar for other automation tools. It's all pretty simple, a couple commands, a couple clicks, and you're up and running with a new version. Really advanced Ansible scripting, just throwing it in there for those that want to get fancy. I am linking to a repo that we're using for our own professional operations, where we're Ansible scripting the deployment of these ETHDocker repos and other ex-Docker repos, including the updates, as well as OS deployments. Okay, that's automation. Better networking. This is purely for you home stakers. The pros don't have to worry about that. They're inside some kind of cloud thing. Maybe they're in a bare metal provider. Maybe they have more money than sense and are in AWS or Azure. I don't know. Whatever people want to do. So they don't have to worry about networking. But the home people do. what we typically have seen is people don't open their ports. So if you're not port forwarding, you might ask why. Well, the reason is if you're not opening your peer-to-peer ports, you're relying on the charity of strangers, as I call it. You're relying on others to have their ports open for you to get good peers. This may work great for a year or two or forever. It may also fail tomorrow because you are relying on that charity. If you can open your incoming ports, then you're that charitable stranger and you will always have good peering. A little bit more advanced, rich networking. If your ISP's router is weak. We ETHStaker are looking to bring out some guides, which we haven't done yet. So what this is about is some people run their ISP's router directly, and then because Ethereum nodes create a ton of connections, the router falls over. This can show in slowdown. It can show that it just stops forwarding connections. Typically, the symptom is you reboot the router and everything's great, and days or weeks later, it's terrible again. And you reboot it and everything's great again. That's a sign of the router can't handle the connection table. In that case, bridge networking is a way to overcome that. The ISP router becomes a dumb modem. If you're into the OSI layer and ask Google what that is, it goes up to layer 2. So it doesn't know what an IP address is anymore. And then you put your own router behind that, and it handles all the connections and all the IP addressing, etc. And you sidestep the weak hardware. Hard mode, this gets unfortunately into the, this might happen to you if relatively easy doesn't work. Hard mode is CGNAT and or IPv6. So CGNAT is carrier grade NAT. In that case, you can't actually open your ports. It can make peering fiendishly hard. It would be possible to sidestep this with something called IP version 6. Unfortunately, the IPv6 support of the clients at this point in time is there. It's working, but it's rudimentary. It's still hard mode to get that working. ETHDocker has a little bit of support for it, but I warn you that you'll probably be talking to people on Discord, including the client teams, if you try and get that to work. CGNAT is IPv4. It's a way to conserve the address space. In that case, you just can't have an incoming connection directly to your address. I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff out. There'll be Googling involved. In that case, ask your ISP whether you can get a static IP and they can get you off CGNAT. If that's not possible, you're unfortunately looking at V6, and that's hard. All right, bonus slide. No talk without AI, I have been told. So the only AI thing here is for home operators or people who aren't, Linux native. ChatGPT is actually surprisingly good as a personal tutor for things that are already solved and incredibly well documented. So don't expect it to give you good regex. It won't. But if you ask it, what are file permissions in Linux? Can you break that down to me, for me? What does ls do exactly? What's a systemd? What's a Docker? It can answer all those questions and be your personal tutor to climb that somewhat kind of steep learning curve a little faster, right? I actually use the thing all the time, and I do know Linux. Resource links, they're there. I believe this will be published. So there they all are. And with that, we go back all the way to the beginning. How did I do for time? We are in the Q&A section, people.
It's nice to meet you. I'm Sven from the NOM team. We meet in real life for the first time.
Nice.
I've been running a home node on Oleszki, and I've accepted that I'm not getting a very high performance. But now I'm on mainnet, and I'm still not in the top 35% of rated. So what can I do? I've actually followed all your steps because I can recommend all these tips are online, and half of them I think are written by you, and they're absolutely great. So don't be afraid to look it up, and there's tons of guides. But I want a bit more, so I want this, at least the top half of rated. So how can I get my performance up? Considering I'm mostly, I think everyone's running into this attestation, inclusion distance, stuff like that. Attestation performance is hard.
Yeah.
And where do I figure out how to do that?
Where in the world are you?
My node is in the Netherlands.
The Netherlands. Okay, that's not bad. You're in Europe, so you should get good peering. I'm asking this because my nodes in Asia Pacific are getting way worse performance than my nodes in Europe. That's just how it is, right? We want geographic diversity, but it's a bit of a bootstrap problem. In the Netherlands, you should be fine there. Inclusion distance sounds like a networking problem. So I'd take a close look at, are you currently using your ISP's router? Is it maybe getting better if you put that thing into bridge mode and put your own router behind it so that you're the endpoint, you know?
Yeah.
This is usually a networking issue.
Okay.
To a degree, there's not much you can do, but you should be able to get to that 98.5, 99% unrated, even on a home connection, as long as your ISP is decent. And as I say, you may have to replace the router. We've seen a lot of this issue with the ISP routers just not being built for what we're doing to them or with them. And yeah, as I said, we're looking to build guides. I may want to, if you do this, I may want to ping you to help us write the section for your specific ISP in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
To document with screenshots, like how do you actually set that particular thing into bridge mode? Because
I have a very German router. It's a Fritzbox.
You got a Fritzbox from the ISP?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know whether those are good. I really don't know.
I thought you'd know them all, but...
No, I don't.
Okay, thanks. Oh, I'll be looking forward to that. Thanks.
Thanks. I have 2 questions. Do you have any suggested clients right now, and any difference from a solo staker perspective versus professional from performance? And then part 2, if you could just talk about EL pruning, any tips that you might have?
Sure. Yeah, we got the 2 terabyte anxiety going on, right? For clients, anything that is not above 66% on the execution layer and not above 33% on the consensus layer is great. That's just for handling your risk, right? So it's not linked here. There is a tweet from POTUS around the last hard fork where he details a bug that they found on Gurley in Prism, where as it had a little bit over 33%, it could actually get the validator stranded. Stranded meaning if it hits this bug, you're on the wrong chain and you can't come back without slashing yourself. The best you can do is wait until everything has been bled out to finalize again and then come over. That's depends on the how far above 33% you are. This might be less than an ETH. It might be 2 ETH for validator. It's still painful, right? So is it likely to happen? No. Is it painful if it happens? Yes. So therefore, clients that are below that 33% threshold, that's currently all of them with the exception of Prism and Lighthouse, are a great choice there. On the execution layer, really anything. All of the clients are below 66%, so they work well. Second part of your question was about storage. Okay, so I just did the math again yesterday, back of the napkin, I have to admit, after talking to the Nethermind team here at DEF CON. I believe that depending on the client a little bit, you're going to be at a point with a 2 terabyte drive where you're at maybe 100 gig free or so, and it becomes really uncomfortable around July, August 25 with crystal ball uncertainty. If you don't want to see whether the teams can do history, expiry, and time, and you see a great offer during Black Friday or whatever for a 4 terabyte drive, take it, right? Do use a good drive, which means TLC and DRAM, not QLC, not DRAM less, just for speed. The client teams are talking about history expiry. They want to expire the history pre-merge, which then would make a 2 terabyte drive last pretty much forever, because later there will be more history expiry added, so we'll always be ahead of this curve. But I can't tell you that it will land in time. There's an aggressive timeline there by the Nethermind team. They want to get that in 25. The question is, does it come before your drive runs out or after? I'm not gonna even speculate. So unfortunately, the risk avoiding strategy is get a 4 terabyte drive. But if you're okay with just waiting and seeing, well, what do they deliver? How are we in Q2 2025? Is it any closer now? How is my drive doing? You can sit there if you're okay with saying, I'll just buy a 4 when I have to, and I don't care what the price of that thing is. Okay, what else we got?
Thank you for the talk. I do know that Galaxy Digital, at least according to the recent Venom report, is pretty bullish on our ETH or REF, which is a new client.
REF, yes,
Yeah.
the client.
I think it has something to do with your personal opinion here. So
Yes.
can you give us your best take on our ETH?
Sure. So to be clear, we're not talking about the Rocket Pool token here.
Yeah. Indeed, we're talking about
the
client.
execution layer client REF. So I really like diversity. I have this idea that if I run multiple combos, then I am less likely to be impacted if one of those has a bug. And of course, I'd like to avoid the combos that might get my validator stranded, because that pretty much ends me. Galaxy can probably swing it. Crypto Manufacturer could not have. That would have ended us if we're stranding the validators and getting them all bled down to nothing. So we're currently running 3 combinations. We're running Nimbus Nethermind, we're running Tekubesu, and we're running Lodestar Reth. Lodestar Reth used to be Lodestar Nethermind, which means I doubled up on Nethermind. I was just looking for another client that I think is solid, and Reth looks really solid, even though it's so new, that I could use, so I have a third execution layer client in my mix. So you mentioned, running for Lido. This is something that home stakers probably don't have to think about. So Lido does not tell us how many keys to put into one environment, but voluntarily we've restricted it to 1,000 keys per kind of contained environment. So if something goes down on our end, which unfortunately does happen, hence monitoring and alerting, always important. No matter how good you are, things will go down. We only have 1,000 keys down. I'm taking too long for these answers.
Thank you for sharing all these great tips, Yorick. I'm Stegosaurus, so I've been a great fan of your work for a long time.
Stegosaurus?
Yeah, hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah. So my question is, if I'm unfortunately behind a CG net, or I'm in a region where there is a bad bootstrapping for peers, right? Mm-hmm. Is it possible to route my connection through a VPN, maybe a paid VPN?
This is incredibly hard.
Okay.
It is. I think most VPNs have turned that off now. That's potentially even harder than IPv6.
I see.
I think if you're behind CGNet and you can't fix that, my ideal in my ideal world, you would do 2 things. One, you'd run an automation framework that supports v6. The only one I'm aware of is ETH-Docker. Even if it's on testnet, and you'd help us and the client teams get this solid. Right now, it's working. Our problem is the ENR auto detection. That's not working. So we're setting the ENR manually, the IP address, the actual v6 address, and see that that's working. I should actually say all of my nodes right now are v4, v6 dual stack. So, and that's working as far as it is. The second option, it's not great, but it's there, is to say, I'm going to go with a bare metal provider like an OVH. I'm going to put myself in there. Unfortunately, that costs. It's between 100 and 160 USD per month, depending on the deal you get. And then that way I sidestep this networking issue, right? CGNet is hard. I think we really need that v6 support sooner rather than later. But it's also a problem for the client teams, because a lot of them don't have v6 to actually test with. So they're writing the support, but their own test rigs don't have it enabled. Right? There's a lot of work to be done. And the more users come to the client team and say, I'm behind CGNet, I'm trying V6, this is what I'm seeing, help, the better, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And increasingly, it's getting more and more difficult to get static IPs.
Absolutely,
More and more people are
100%.
behind CGNets. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we're out of V4 addresses worldwide, right? This is something that impacts the US less, Asia Pacific a lot, and Europe increasingly. I'm assuming Latin America and Africa are similarly motoring towards CGNet because they don't have the V4 addresses to give out.
Thank you.
We ran out of questions. Thank you so much. Let's
Thank
give
you,
a round of
everyone.
applause.
It's been a great
That was
audience.
amazing.
Thank you very much.